Thank you, members and friends and guests, to this. Welcome to this webinar of the Wagner Society of Northern California. Our guest today is Helden tenor Clay Hille. We'll be in conversation and we'll get to hear about his career and what he's been up to. A lot of us got to know Clay when we were in Berlin 2 years ago for The Ring and got to see his spectacular performance of Siegfried. And he was just absolutely terrific. We were all surprised as can be, because this was like a great new Helden tenor voice that we were hearing. So welcome, members and guests. So this is the first of two of events for the month. We'll have we'll talk about the next one, which will be next week at the end of the show. So as I've said, today's guest is Helden tenor Clay Hille. Now, Clay received his bachelor's degree in music education from the University of Georgia, a master's degree in vocal arts from Georgia State University, a professional studies degree from the Manhattan School of Music, and a performer's certificate from the Opera Institute of Boston University. So he's got a lot of sheepskin on the wall over there. Fellow Wagnerians, as I said, were introduced to him in 2021 when he sang Siegfried at the Deutsche Oper Berlin under the baton of our wonderful Sir Donald Runnicles. Hille made his Bayreuth debut as Siegfried in 2022 when he was flown in from Italy to replace an ailing colleague. 2023 debuts will include his first stage production of Tristan at Deutsche Oper, again under Sir Donald Runnicles, Der Kaiser, in a new production of Die Frau ohne Schatten in Baden-Baden with Kirill Petrenko and the Berlin Philharmonic. And we're having Die Frau ohne Schatten right here in San Francisco right now. And I'm especially excited about that. And a debut at the Royal Opera House Covent Garden in Wozzeck, led by Sir Anthony Pappano. So without further ado, I will open up the conversation with Clay. So Clay, when was it that you decided to pursue a career as a singer?
Well, hello, everyone. Glad to be joining you. Happy, like I say, I'll echo the happy Father's Day to you fathers out there, and everyone for joining us here. Thank you for accommodating me at noon on your time, because it is 9 p.m. here in Berlin. So thank you for meeting me sort of halfway. And sorry if it's a little too early earlier than many of you might prefer. Okay, the question, when did I decide to sing? I was always a musical kid. I started the trumpet in the 5th grade, and I took up piano less than a year later. I had this sort of innate desire to play the piano. I think I always credit that to my late grandmother, who always, years before I was even born, prayed to have some sort of musically inclined grandkids. So I think that's I got to be the one that I got all the student debt from conservatory of all my cousins and siblings. I come from a fairly big family, I guess by today's standards. I have 2 brothers and a sister. I'm the oldest of 4, and neither parent nor any grandparent, aunt or uncle, nor any of my siblings got the music bug, but I had it. So I thank my grandmother. So it was trumpet in the 5th grade, then it was piano less than a year later. I only began to sing at all in high school, and it was just because I was already in the band, and a lot of my friends that were in the band were also in the chorus, and I was like, what the heck, let's sing in the chorus. And the more I sang out or whatever, the more people were like, hey, you kind of have a solo-y type voice, and maybe you should sing this or that solo. And then my school did very ambitiously mounted the HMS Pinafore for a bunch of 15-year-olds. I mean, it was like, it wasn't even the senior. I was a sophomore at the time, so I was only 15. There were older students in the school, but my class was pretty much, where all the talent was for some reason or another. So actually, it was like a lot of the, not juniors, not seniors. It was the sophomore class that really shone in that production, and I was one of the ones. And it was I'm telling you, I was so new to singing that when my folks arrived to be in the audience for it, they were just like, oh, it's just a musical. Clay, we've seen Clay do piano recitals and be in the band. I guess this will be like anything else. But when I opened my mouth and all I was doing was just sort of imitating what I heard on the CD that I had, or maybe at that time it might have been a cassette, I don't know. But I just sort of mimicked what I thought was an operatic-y sound. And my parents were just astonished. They were just, they were like, because I never sang at home. I never really practiced at home. I only sang at rehearsals at school. But anyway, from that moment on, I had the singer bug. But also, I had, understandably cautious parents.
Sure.
Yes, shipping their son off for a music degree. It doesn't seem, particularly well advised. So I decided, like you said, my first degree was music education. So I decided, well, I really want to pursue this. I want to pursue the idea of singing at a high-ish level. I mean, as far as learning a technique or whatever. Well, I want to get everything I can out of this. But I probably, if I'm being real, I'll probably end up, teaching high school or high school chorus or something, because I love choral music. I never was into grand opera until later. That's the next step in the story. But at this point, it's still in the high school, college planning time. I still wanted to be really good at the piano. I kept piano all through, like I said, started in like the sixth grade, all middle school and high school. But then I really wanted to be good at it. I wanted to be able to say in past tense at some point in my life, I was a piano major at college. And so I am able to say that because I was a double major in both voice and piano. But I was only into things like light opera, Gilbert and Sullivan, and I was into the idea of being maybe like like an oratorio soloist or something like Messiah or The Creation or Elijah or these sort of things. But grand opera, even though I had seen it a few times, it never really gripped me. It was once I joined a local company called the Athena Grand Opera in Athens, Georgia, where I was going to school, where I went to high school, actually. I stayed home. I didn't move away for undergrad, actually. I always laugh with my friend or anyone who I tell about it. I traveled further to high school daily. My commute from my home to high school was longer than my commute to the University of Georgia. So I stayed home. I was a homebody. But I majored in music education, but my instruments, I had two. I only needed one, but I chose two, voice and piano. So then when I was in the Athena Grand Opera chorus, we did La Boheme. And that's all it took. Being around it more, I'd seen La Boheme. I'd gone to Atlanta to see the Atlanta Opera do it at the Fox Theater, but I just remembered it being just kind of long. And that's not the greatest venue, to be honest. Right? I mean, it's a beautiful venue for traveling musicals, Broadway musical tours and stuff. But it's a barn. It's 4,600 seats. It's gigantic, and not an operatic acoustic, but although beautiful. But anyway, I'd seen it there, and I wasn't that enchanted with it. But being in the chorus, being actually on stage singing, I mean, who doesn't love Act 2 of La Boheme? So that's when I caught the operatic bug. And yeah, just watching the principal artists, watching the Rodolfo, being like thinking, I think with the right training, I could do that. So that's where it began. That's where I got the opera bug. And I finished, but I continued to pursue. I didn't change anything in terms of like major or college, like the college track that I was on. I did get the music ed degree, even though I never used it one single day. I took a year off in between undergrad and grad school, and that's when I went not even very far. I went to Atlanta for my master's degree, and then I did many apprenticeships over the summer for 10 consecutive summers, starting in, I think, 2004, right when I graduated at University of Georgia. For 10 consecutive summers, I was off doing some kind of, summer festival there in the States, or even in Italy. I did a few programs that were tuition based. We call them pay to sing. I did those in the beginning. I also did, in addition to the summer stuff, I did spend half of a season with the Indianapolis Opera Ensemble, which toured, or it was all educational outreach. I was playing the coveted role of Baby Bear in Goldilocks and the Three Bears in Outer Space, to the music of the Magic Flute. Naturally, that was the spring of 2008. And then the other apprenticeship I did that was year round was down in Phoenix. The Arizona Opera brought me on for the season, the 2011-2012 season. And I sang, small roles and covered big ones. And there was no educational outreach with that one. That was a much more proper sort of, kind of a fest type gig. I was same opera house, the whole season. And that ended my, or that was close to the end of my young artist career. We'll call it 2013. So 10 years ago this year, I was still in the young artist circuit. I was 31. I'm 41 now. I was 31, still going and doing apprentice work. In this case, it was my second year, the 2013 I'm talking about. It was my second year at Glimmerglass, and I was covering J. Hunter Morris's Eric for the Hollander. That was a big Verdi Wagner year. Remember 2013?
Yeah, he's one of our favorites here too.
Of course. So yes, I've been, I guess, full-time freelance since 2012. But it was there's a lot of rocky, rough patches. But ever since I began the Wagner stuff full on and with the proper training, which and it might be a subsequent question, but I'll go ahead and mention it was
Yeah. Yeah.
it was it
Important.
was yeah, it was getting with the right mentor. It was getting with and he's still my mentor, current teacher and mentor, John Frederick West, known as no
Yes.
stranger to San Francisco opera.
Yes.
And, known for his Tannhäusers and Tristans and Siegfrieds and Ring Cycles. And it was at Glimmerglass where I met him. Francesco Zambello had him come work with a few tenors and with me also in 2012. I had 2 years at Glimmerglass. In 2012 was the first year I was there, and Zambello brought him over, introduced us, and so from that point we were connected on Facebook, and he sort of kept track of me, just at a distance. And then when I started really when it became really obvious that this was the direction I was going, he reached out to me and said, "Look, why don't you come up? We'll coach this stuff like intensely. I'll tell you what you got to do to succeed, and I'll tell you what you got to do to get the finishing touches on your technique, and I'll coach you through these roles." So to this day, it continues. Even though I'm over here in Berlin, I'll make sure I spend a week with him. He's retired in Utica, so I go spend a week with him and his wife, and we just work as much as we can every day. Every day we work a few hours on whatever I've got coming up, and especially if it's something that he was known for. So
Yeah.
so that's when the fortunes turned around.
Yeah, Emma's got a little slideshow. So why don't we look at a
Let's
couple
do the
of
slideshow.
slides, and that will help us segue to some additional questions here.
Great.
And we're going to go through some of his career things. Here he is singing Siegfried in Union Avenue Opera at St. Louis in 2014. We can go to the next slide. Bard Summerscape. And this is a program that I don't know how many people know about it, but this is a really, really wonderful summer festival where they take a deep dive in a composer's body of work. And I've been familiar with it and never had a chance to get there. So this looks like must have been a Dvorak work season there. More at the Bard with Korngold. Todesstadt, an absolute favorite of mine. Here we are in Fischer's digital program platform here. Blindborn Tour 2021. This is getting a little nearer here. Oh, look what happened here. Why did you tell us about how you met your lovely wife? Was it here in San Francisco? And here he is. This is where I got to see him first as Siegfried at the Deutsche Oper in 2021. And man, was he ever wonderful. He was the only one that wasn't running around in underpants. And here he is in his
no, but interestingly, she did go to the conservatory. She's a graduate of the conservatory.
Okay, you're kind of we're having a bandwidth with your
there might be a reason for that.
Yeah. Yeah, so you met her when you were here covering roles, and she was at the conservatory. Did I get that correct?
Yes. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now, or am I
can hear you, but your video is frozen. There we go. Your video was frozen for a minute there. So yeah. So your lovely wife is Sarah Duchovny, and I talked to you after the Götterdämmerung, and you were seated next to her, and she turned around. And
I think it might.
Yeah. Oops.
It may have something to do. I think we have a delay.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know how to correct this. Okay, take down the slideshow. Yeah, someone's asking for that. take down the slideshow. That looks like that might have helped. Probably a bandwidth concern.
Can you hear me now in real time?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt the slideshow, but I think that was the problem.
Yeah. Okay.
I think because it was up. Well, there's still some more. We can go back and talk about this.
Well,
If we want to
can
finish
go
the
back.
slideshow, we can.
Yeah, we could do that, or we could just get some of the talking points
Okay.
of what we saw. So what was it like at the Bard Summerscape? That was the one thing that I was really interested in, because it's a beautiful festival. I know they broadcasted for years, and I would listen to the broadcast because it was unusual music that wasn't part of the, the La Boheme, Aida, and Rossini stuff. And it was interesting, vital music, there's a lot of modern music too. So how was that experience for you?
Yes, I was brought up, like you say, for the Dmitri, the Dvorak. It was actually a summer of featuring Chopin, because sometimes Leon Botstein, when he programs that, when he has the composer he wants to zero in on, sometimes he actually choose a composer like from nearby. So with Chopin being Polish, he chose a Czech composer because they composed around the same time period and they're from the same sort of Slavic world. And so even though it was a Chopin summer, we did Dvorak. It was a bear. It was a really, really difficult piece. Thematically, it is. If are there any Boris Godunov fans out there? Plot wise, this was the Dmitri title character is the same false Dmitri from Boris, and it's sort of a sequel in terms of like plot. It's a sequel to Boris, about where the false Dmitri and his wife Marino assume power in Moscow, and just sort of how everything falls out, because he's not truly deeply in love with his own wife. He's in love with this charming Ksenia, soprano character, and Ksenia is the daughter of Shawisky, the same Shawisky in Boris, and so that's the plot. I mean, that's in broad terms, that's kind of the plot. The music was Dvorak, so it was beautiful. The problem with me is I had not done much Czech. I had done the Janacek Diary of One Who Vanished, 2007, on my master's recital in Atlanta. So I learned. I mean, that's a lot. That's a mouthful of Czech there. But I had not done any in the 10 years intervening. And also, it was kind of hastily put together, and it was strophic. So that meaning you don't get much help from the music. You're singing the same music over and over, but with different words each time. And so it was wonderful. I mean, it all turned out. It turned out amazingly. But it was kind of it was certainly something that it was difficult to mount and difficult to learn. But like I said, the final product was wonderful, and it was, as my John West, my teacher, being up in Utica, he was able to come see it because it's not too far away. He was able to come over to Bard College for see it live, and I remember he held up his champagne glass at the after party to me and said, to what's perhaps an auspicious debut. No one would really expect that something like that would put anyone on any sort of map, but there was tons of New York press. There's tons of press from the city that it comes up there. Right. I don't think Opera News did that one. I got my first big Opera News one when I came back for Toda Stadt 2 years later. Okay. Semi stage, which of course that was in the slideshow a minute ago. But regardless, even though it wasn't Opera News, I mean, I think that's where. I think the New York Times was there. I think the Wall Street Journal was there. So I had quite a lot. Even the very we'll call it a very particular crowd at Parterre Box was a big fan. So
Yes, I know. I used to hang out looking at their blog, and then I finally just decided this is just too intense for me.
I can't say I was a regular peruser of the site, but I'm told I have it on good authority that if they like you, you must have done something fairly right. So
yeah.
Anyway, so that's Bard.
Picky.
That's Bard, and like we've said, I went back 2 years later for Toda Stadt, and that was that was cool. That was a really good one. Like you were saying, yeah, Corn Gold. It's unfortunate that he would ever be neglected. I'm offended that it's been since the 20s since the Metropolitan Opera Company did their only production of Todestadt, and it was, I think, production in like 1922, and it was revised in 1923, and 100 years later, it has not been done. So I think that's shameful.
It is really too bad because it's really beautiful music. It's accessible. It's a great story. And
I know.
they could do with a fewer Aidas and a few more of these more obscure operas. And let's
Yeah,
hope they get the message on that.
yeah,
So we
nothing
had a
again. Yeah,
terrific,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
we had a
nothing. We
terrific
all
one
we all
here.
love Aida. I mean, we like you say, it's not nothing wrong with Aida. Who doesn't love it? I mean, it's great. But like you say, this is great neglected repertoire.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think, in the Mets' defense, I think they do. I think I've seen on some sort of gossip boards regarding future programming that it's on the table somewhere. And I'm also glad that I'm in a country now that does it, on every street corner. So,
Yeah.
oh, there we go.
Here we go. Here's a picture of it here. So, well, yeah. So, you've been, hauling around the U.S. in a camper from place to place, and we know that you're among the camping tenors. Another one is Klaus Florian Vogt, who I still think to this day is driving a motorhome around to shows when he's on the road. And we had another one here, Cody Quattlebaum, another tenor who wound up going from the Adler Merilla program over to Opera House Zurich, and he drove all over the US in the camper. So it's interesting. And you actually have a little bit of information on your website about your camping life there too. Tell us what that is like for you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. I didn't know if we still had the same problem with the slideshow.
Okay.
Okay. It's past tense. We had to sell it when we moved. We became residents of Berlin in Christmas of 21. And so that meant that we needed to go ahead and divest of everything that we had in the States. I sold my beautiful little fun car. I had a BMW convertible 2001, very, very old car, but very fun. 2003, very sexy red color convertible, 5-speed. I had to sell it. And I also sold the truck, which you saw the whole setup there in the last slide. You saw the camper and the truck. So we had to sell all that stuff because, there's no point keeping depreciating assets when you never see them, but maybe once a year. So once we moved, we had to sell it. We'd had it at that point. It was in our 5th year of owning it. We bought it in late 17, and yeah, we bought it in Dallas. I was covering. It was in between my first engagement. My first engagement at San Francisco Opera came in 2 parts. It was, do you remember the Hockney Turandot of 17 with Brian Jade? I covered Brian. Mm-hmm. So that was my first gig there. For the first run of it, there were 6 performances in like September or something. It was a season opener, and I stayed in Opera Plaza for that. But Sarah and I, this was also the same summer as I'd been at Bard. And I had some other gigs, and Sarah and I were both at a time in our life where we were in she was in her late 20s and I was in mid 30s, and we had to we were both living, pretty much our address was our respective parents' homes, just because the business, she's busy freelancing, I'm busy freelancing, there's no sense in actually investing in a brick and mortar home. So we decided, what about either a motor home or a camper? And so we started shopping that summer. Actually, there's a Camping World location near Bard College, and I can't remember the name of the city, but they had like an open, they had sort of an open house where they showed their whole lot of inventory. They had a big festival day where you could, like on a Saturday, just come in and just peruse the inventory. So going in and seeing the actual inside of them, in person, it was new for Sarah. I came from, my family was camper people and boat people, lake people. My maternal grandparents had had a Breaking Bad style motorhome, Winnebago type deal. And then my paternal grandparents they were always camper people. So not the motorhome, but the kind you drag behind the truck, which is what we, of course, you saw in the picture, eventually settled with. So from late 17, like I said, I was in Opera Plaza for the first run of Turandot, the six performances in September or so. And then I went straight to Dallas, flew to Dallas, because I was covering a run of Samson there. I was like the cover. I just covered everywhere for years and made plenty of money, but no one ever knew who I was. But that's a different conversation for maybe another few minutes from now. But
right.
But as far as the camper, we decided when we were there, Sarah came to visit Dallas, and we just decided, we went shopping. One day we were just expecting to be just window shopping, but we found like a good deal that we couldn't turn down. So we bought it. The very one you see there parked at the Redwoods. That's what we bought in Dallas, dragged it back to San Francisco for the next six performance run of Turandot, which was November, December of the same fall. So we parked it in Pacifica. There's what was it called? Sarah, what was the name of it? Was it Pacific RV? I don't know. Anyway, she's doing her own thing in the other room, but she'll figure it out. Anyway, but Pacific RV Park? Oceanside RV Resort. That's where we were. So we were in Pacifica for a while, and there's some kind of strange law in the Bay Area about like you can't have a camper at one campground more than 28 days. So after that 28th day, you have to like go park it somewhere else for like a day, and then if you want to come back, you can do 28 more days. One of these silly, I have no idea what the logic behind it is. But what we did instead was we went then to the north. We went up to Marin, and I think that was just called the Marin RV Park. That was super nice, and lots of fun stuff to do around. And then around a few weeks before Christmas, we began the journey from the west to the east. We went down, we dragged it down to see some friends in Los Angeles. And then we dragged it, 400, 200, I don't know, 300 miles a day or something like that, all across Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. We stayed in Houston with and visited some friends for 3 or 4 nights. We went to New Orleans. We parked it in a place called French Quarter. I think it was called the French Quarter RV Park. Wow. You could just catch an Uber 5 minutes. You're on Bourbon Street, or it'd be a 10-minute walk. It's a really nice place. And then by the time we got to Georgia, which is my home, we were able to show it to my folks. So we were home by Christmas. And then didn't get to loiter very long in the South. We continued up the East Coast all the way up to Jersey City, where I was about to start covering Parsifal, my first gig at the Met.
Wow.
I was covering Klaus. It was Klaus Florian was doing the first remount of that Francois Girard production that I believe Kaufman was the first time. So Klaus did the second one, and I was his cover. And I also did a recital for the Wagner Society of New York, who had given me their first prize back in 2015, and had tried a number of occasions to get me up to do a recital, but it didn't work out. But with the Met, with Parsifal about to begin rehearsals, we were able to schedule something, and it actually was on Sarah's birthday, and that was the recital at which I proposed. There is actually a viral video on YouTube for anyone who hasn't seen it. You can just type Clay Hilly Metropolitan Opera, and then that was kind of the clickbait title that a friend of mine recommended that we title the video. And you can see me actually propose. I sang "Be My Love" as an encore, and she had no idea. She was not expecting it. And you see me go on my knees on a high C, and I present the ring. So it was a high stakes proposal, but we were engaged from that point until mid-19 when we got married.
Oh, that's wonderful.
But more camper, and then I brought the camper all the way back out, all the way across the states again to San Francisco, because I covered Ziegmund and both Siegfrieds in 18 for the last cycle.
Yeah.
And I was there also for the season opener. A few months after that was Cav Pag, and that was the last thing I did in San Francisco. Of course, I was supposed to do, you mentioned Zemlinsky earlier, I was supposed to do the Zwerg,
Right.
but it was COVID cancellation. Yeah.
Yeah, I know the COVID
So
cancellation story. We don't
I
like
know
that.
we've all got. I know I'm not some sort of special victim or anything.
No.
Everybody I know, we all have it. Even non-opera singers, we all have COVID stories, don't we?
So what was it like to do your Bayreuth debut? That had to be, butterflies.
It
Big
was the it was the best couple of days. I can't imagine how it could have gone better. Um, I mean, for being first of all, it was we were on vacation, so that was fun. We were already having a good time, and I had been on. We had been down there on in on excuse me in oh come on, what's the region, Sarah? Yeah, but we were in Bari. I can't remember what region it is. Puglia, Puglia, down on the boot of the excuse me, the heel of the boot. On vacation, was seeing some friends, and on about the fourth day of vacation, we were drinking some Aperol spritzes and having some Italian food. And my phone, first I saw on my phone a friend request come in from Facebook from Katarina Wagner, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. I wonder. I'm glad she wants to be my Facebook friend. That's kind of cool." And then about 15 minutes later, my phone rang and it said, Bayreuth, Germany. And I said, "Uh-oh, Sarah, I think vacation might be coming to a close pretty quickly." I picked up the phone and they said, "Clay, would you be in theory, in principle, would you be available to join us in Bayreuth as early as tonight or tomorrow for the opening of Götterdämmerung?" And immediately I was thinking, "Oh my goodness, I'm so glad it's Götterdämmerung. I'm so glad this is not a call about Tristan," which I had not performed all of at the time, nor was it the big Siegfried, which of course I know, and I'm very proud of the way I perform it. But that's a lot more to learn. I mean, that's a lot more staging and a lot more words and a lot more notes, and than Götterdämmerung. So we got a taxi to the Bari airport. We flew to Munich, and someone was there waiting with a score of Götterdämmerung, a little pad of paper and a pencil to make notes. And I already had, the Bayreuth had already emailed me the archival footage from the dress rehearsal a couple of nights prior to that. And while we took the 2-hour cab ride from Munich up to Bayreuth, I learned the production just visually, and I had performed it, I think 6 times in the last 10 months or something, all in Berlin. I'd done 6 performances in Berlin in fall of 21 and January of 22. So it's just one of those pieces that, was really fresh and not the highest pressure, not again compared to something like Tristan or Tannhäuser or Siegfried. It was wonderful. I even missed my I guess there's some details that I could continue to delineate here. We arrived, I think, 11 p.m. We finally got to the hotel in Bayreuth, and at that point, I still had not been told I was going to go on. I was just brought up initially just as an emergency cover, because they said Stefan Gould reported that he was not feeling well, but it was not an official cancellation yet. So I got there. I slept well. It was fine. I saw on the rehearsal schedule the next morning, I was due for a costume fitting at 10 a.m. So when I showed up at the stage door, they said, "Well, good morning. You're going to go on today. It's going to be you. You're going to sing downbeats at 4 o'clock." So it's 10 a.m. when I'm finding out that at 4 o'clock, 6 hours later, I would be on for the debut of this new production at the same opera house on the same stage where this opera was debuted, period, in 1876. So that was, but again, it was Götterdämmerung. It's not the easiest opera, but by comparison to those other giants that I mentioned, it was just a perfect situation to be in. When I had about maybe an hour to an hour and a half of music, maybe only 1 hour, and then only about an hour and a half of scenic rehearsal, because and it was with the assistant directing crew, well, and Constantine, excuse me, Valentin Schwartz. He was there, but there were no, you can't ask in that sort of situation. You can't ask cast members to come in. They've got their own thing to worry about, and so usually you're just rehearsing with stand-in assistants, and they were wonderful. They were very helpful. I was able to learn the show, very well within just an hour and a half. And then at the curtain speech, they made an announcement, and he did it in a very, if I could say so, in a very showman-y sort of way. It began with him talking about how Mr. Gould was just had canceled the show, and there were some gasps. And they said, and also his cover, there was also another cover there, and I'm not sure what happened in that case, but they said, and also his cover is unable to perform. And then that was the biggest gasp. And they said, however, we have brought in Clay Healy, and some people I think had seen me in Berlin, but at that point the Naxos DVDs had not been released. So if you hadn't seen me in Berlin, you wouldn't have known. We wouldn't have any reason to know who I was. But when they said he's flown up from his vacation just since yesterday, and he's agreed to not only sing but to act the role, and that's when there was an eruption of applause, because these people paid quite a lot of money, and they assumed from the beginning of that speech, I'm sure they were already resigned, in their own minds to thinking, oh goodness, we're going to have to watch. We paid all this money, and now we're going to hear a tenor singing down here in the pit, and we're going to watch someone else doing the action on stage. But when they heard that I had agreed to do both, sing and act, then they were immediately boisterously applauding. So that was a good feeling to me, because I was standing right behind the curtain, ready to go, and to hear them already sort of be on my side was quite a nice thing to hear. And it all went incredibly well.
Wow, that's really incredible. How'd the final curtain go? Did you get a big whoop 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 and a lot of yelling and screaming and you bravos?
I did. They were quite generous and with me, and I just remember leaning down and shaking the prompter's hand for being so helpful and keeping me on top of the beat, because it is a strange acoustic. It's everything you've ever heard. The orchestra, which sounds like nothing else you'll ever hear in the best possible way, there's something about the acoustic that plays a trick on your ear, even though you're loving what you're hearing. If you try to sing with the maestro's beat, somehow or another it doesn't work out. You have to watch the prompter instead. So that's what I learned in my brief little experience there at the theater on the Green Hill, is that you just trust that the prompter is going to keep you on top of your beat. So
yeah, so you got,
but they were not. But yes,
you've got more Bayreuth coming in your schedule.
I do. Yes. So Katharina she had come to Berlin. She had seen me do the Siegfrieds here, and had already made an offer for me to be the Siegfried for Siegfried and Götterdämmerung for the 150th anniversary commemoration of the Festspielhaus. I mentioned 1876 a minute ago. Well, we do the math. 2026 will be the 150th year, and I will be your Siegfried for that, and it will repeat in 2027. So she had already known me, and she had already hired me before she sent me that frantic friend request in Italy that day last July. So she had known me for a while. She'd known me for a little bit before dragging me up and throwing me on stage for opening night of Götterdämmerung last summer.
That's amazing. It's just absolutely amazing. So what are your favorite roles to sing? I mean, we've talked about Wagner. Was there something non-Wagner that you really particularly like to sing? Oh
yeah, even to this day, I think I've still done, I guess Götterdämmerung is catching up to be one of the ones I've done more than anything. But I think Canio still holds the record for my own personal performance history. And also I love doing it because that's one that Sarah and I can do together. So Sarah sings a wonderful Nedda, and I sing, I like the way I do Canio. And actually that was the first gig we did after we got married in 19. We often joke about that the very first time we both appeared on stage, about 3 months after our wedding, I had to violently murder her, which was, there was some irony there somewhere. But I love Samson as well. I think Samson's a glorious role. Aside from covering it in Dallas in 2017, I've only done it once elsewhere, and it was in Greenville, South Carolina. I did 3 performances last February, and it was just I I just love it. It's so impressive. It's not it's not a difficult thing, but it just sounds really heroic and wonderful. It's just you think that Sanson would have written like would have already written many more operas, considering how well that flows out of off the Helden tenor voice. So yes, for non-German. Also, I think my favorite opera of all time is Turandot. I mean, I just think it's the pinnacle of everything. Even though I'm some big Wagnerian tenor that sings all the Wagner, and proud to be so. I never do not want that to be the case, but also I was thrilled the other day when I received my first first Kaloff contract, and it will be for Deutsche Oper in a few years. Sorry, I guess I can't technically say it out loud, but it will be in a few years here in Berlin in my backyard. So I got my first of those. So aside from covering that 17 run of 12, I've never performed. I did the chorus once in Atlanta Opera, and but I'm looking forward to doing that piece. It's just I love everything about it. What else? What other non-German? I'd love to do Forza. I would love to do that. I've never done. Never
Wow,
done that.
yeah.
I would love to do Les Troyens. I would not done it, nor learned it, but I want to. There's a lot of concert repertoire that I haven't done that I'd like to do. I'm thinking the Schoenberg Gura Lieder is one of the big, gigantic, colossal war horses that I haven't done yet, but would like to. But what else do I have? Oh, I have an interesting non-German piece coming up this season, sort of in keeping with harkening back to our early conversation about Czech. My Hamburg debut will be Janacek's Jenüfer in January of 2024. Yeah, that's in the mid of this coming season. Also the biography you read was for all of you regarding the 23-24 season, and it's all been announced, so I can tell you right here and now if you'd like to hear it, because my website, you mentioned being in my website, I'm currently revamping it, and so I haven't been actively updating it because I know it's all going to change. The whole format of the website is going to change soon. So at this point, oh yeah, there you go. That's my current season, but you won't find season 23-24 on there, only 22-23.
Okay.
So are we still
here
do we have any lag or anything? Are we still looking?
Well,
What's that? Yeah, you'll hear it here first.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Maybe
are you ready?
the slide, Emma. There we go. Back to Clay. There we are.
Okay. Are we live now?
Yeah.
Are you hearing me in real time now? Okay, good.
Pretty much.
So I am now, as of last week, I closed the Wozzeck that you mentioned, the Wozzeck at Royal Opera with Tony Pappano. That closed last Wednesday, maybe 2 Wednesdays ago. I think June the 7th was the final performance there in London of that. And that drum major, that's a great part. I love doing it. Not a lot of pressure, to be honest. He's on stage such a short amount of time, and not particularly rangy, but you get to act a lot. You get to be a real bad guy, which can be kind of fun for tenors who are normally the hero. Okay, so that ended this season, 22-23. I thankfully have the summer off because I desperately needed off for many reasons, relaxation of the old voice, and also I have many debuts coming up. So it begins with me and Sir Donald Runnicles in Edinburgh for the Edinburgh International Festival, one performance of Tannhäuser in concert, the 25th of August this year, of course. So just a couple of months off, the 25th of August, Tannhäuser with Donald Runnicles. Actually, it's all a Deutsche Oper Berlin gig. They're bringing pretty much most of the cast. They're the ensemble of Deutsche Oper Berlin. Also, all the chorus will be DOB and the orchestra. So it's just basically Deutsche Oper Berlin on tour. The one night only, 25th of August in Edinburgh. And then I come over across the pond to Toronto, where I will sing a new production of Fidelio. 7 performances over the course of September and October. Then I come back home to Berlin, where I do my first my role debut of Stolzing in Meistersinger. So it'll be my first Meistersinger in November, and I think is 2 performances in mid to late November, and then the final performance I think is the first weekend of December. And then I head to Hamburg for the Jennifer that I just mentioned, the Janacek. And then after that, I go rehearse Ariadne auf Naxos in Munich for a tour to Hong Kong.
Oh my goodness.
The Munich Opera House will take me and company members on tour for 2 performances in Hong Kong in February. And then in March, we rehearse. Wait a minute, is it late March? I think in late March, yeah. There's 4 performances of Parsifal, which will be my Parsifal debut and Munich debut properly in Munich. It'll be Parsifal, 4 performances in late March and early to mid-April. And then I come back to Berlin for a revival of the Ring Cycle that you saw. So that's being revived in May, and it closes in early June. And then I go to Barcelona for a concert of Act 1 of Die Walküre with Lisa Davidson.
Oh, wow.
I think one maybe 2 performances, but maybe just 1. I can't remember off the top of my head. And then back to Munich for 2 more Parsifals as a part of their festival. So the 4 in the spring are part of the regular season, and then it'll be the same production, except for this time, Nina Stemma will be my Kundry for the 2 performances of Parsifal in the summer. And then I think I have a few weeks off before flying back over to the States to do Lied von der Erde with Donald Runnicles at it's the chamber orchestra version. So orchestrated, a smaller orchestration done by, I think Schoenberg did the small, the chamber orchestration of Lied von der Erde with the Santa Fe Chamber Orchestra, if that's what it's called. It's a chamber group in Santa Fe, and so I'll be there with Donald. So that'll be the closest I get to California.
Oh.
in my next season.
Yeah, well, he does a concert series up in Jackson, and
oh yes,
Jackson Hole.
Yes,
Wilson, he
invited.
has a place in Wilson, but then there's that festival he does up that way too. In the summer.
Up at Jackson Hole. Yeah. So Sarah will be going there. Sarah, my wife, will be going. Yeah, she's going to be covering Anna Maria Martinez's Cho-Cho San for their Butterfly this year. So starting last year, they did their first staged opera. They did Bohème last summer, and so it's we all assumed when he invited her that Butterfly would be was probably likely to be in concert, but then we found out no, it's going to be fully staged. So she'll do that with Donald. Yeah, so she coaches with Donald too here in Berlin, and Donald's wife, Adele. Adele
yes.
has been very helpful, for both of us. So.
Yeah, that's really great. Well, I can open it up now to any questions folks might have. You can go either and put them in the chat area or in the Q&A period. I have one in here from Kirk Davis's. The first question to him is, what is your favorite opera to listen to? And then follow up, to sing. Thanks for that.
Okay, well, I hope you don't pull the plug on me.
No.
And dismiss me for this answer, but I've had kind of a revival. Remember back in high school, I mentioned the HMS Pinafore and liking light opera. I've kind of had a renaissance of Gilbert and Sullivan in my life lately, and along with which I've also dragged Sarah into. Actually, didn't have to drag her. That was her first opera too. She did the HMS Pinafore in her high school, many hundreds of miles away from me, and many years after because she's significantly younger than I am. So So she always liked the Pinafore and Gilbert Sullivan. I think she was also been in Trial by Jury and some of the others. And I did a lot in undergrad. So even after I caught the opera bug, because Gilbert Sullivan it's such a it's proper stuff. It's great stuff, especially for Americans. I mean, people singing in your own language, a character that should be reasonably decently relatable to you and your experience. Like it should just be done. It should be done, by everyone. I just love the stuff. I was in Valkyrie last summer in Austria with a great British mezzo of my generation called Claire Barnett Jones. Maybe if any of you guys follow the Cardiff Singer of the World competition, she during I think it was during the COVID year, she won the audience favorite, I think was her title, the award she took home. So anyway, she was singing Fricka in Valkyrie with me as Siegmund this time last year. And again, she's British. And at some point, another GNS came up. And when she found out that I liked it or had liked it 20 years ago, she was like, okay, you said you're going to be in Edinburgh, because I did the Edinburgh Festival last year. Donald and I did Fidelio in the same time slot. Actually, it was earlier August back then. But Claire found out I was going to be there and said, okay, you and Sarah, if you're Gilbert and Sullivan people, you need to go to the International Gilbert and Sullivan Festival in either Buxton, England or Harrogate, England. So we looked at our schedules, and Sarah has cousins that she's very close to, and they live in Manchester. We visited them for a few days, and then we went over to Harrogate because that worked with the schedule. And we stayed there for a week. We saw 6 or 7 shows over the course of 5 or 6 days and just fell in love with the stuff because I just done Bayreuth. Okay. I just done Valkyrie 2 months prior. I just done Fidelio up at the Edinburgh Festival. So I think I have my bona fides with serious grand opera. Like I think I have the right to, on my off time, just listen to as much, silly, clever music as I can get my hands on, considering there's hardly any cleverness or any silliness in any of Wagner. But if you, those of you who saw my Siegfried, I played it, quite smart alecky. I think Siegfried is a character you can do a lot of. He's very skeptical of authority. He doesn't like to be told what to do. He's got this sort of rebel streak, and I think some of that comes from maybe some impish characters in the GNS canon that I loved again 20 years ago. There was this 20 years of my life. I think 2003 was the last time I did a GNS. It was the Gondoliers, and then to think that it was 2022, so almost 20 years later before I ever actually went to see any GNS and or get fall back in love with it the way I have. Yeah. So that's what I like to listen to these days. Now that can change. There's been periods of my life where
it's not easy repertory. It's complicated, and then there's all this dancing you got to do too. So you can't just park and bark. You got to.
No, you can't phone it in.
No, you cannot, and you have to be charming too, and act like a bumbling fool sometimes, and so on. Okay, we got some more questions coming in. Thank you, folks. Did you really start out as a baritone? Someone's asking.
I did not. I was always a high tenor. I had to actually let my low voice sort of come in with age. I never sang baritone except for Gilbert and Sullivan baritones, which are like notated in treble clef anywhere anyway, and they can be higher, high baritone. I sang Don Cairo one time, so I've sung some baritone roles, but always like with a tenor voice. So there's a term for that. There's the two divisions of held and tenor. You've got one that's called the schweres, 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 meaning heavy, and normally that means the baritone most of their career, and then when they got older, they decided to really work on their upper extension, and they sing stuff like Parsifal and Tristan in many cases, and definitely Siegmund. Siegmund is very baritonal. Siegmund's difficult for me because of so much low singing. It's comfortable, but it's like I can't work on anything simultaneously. I can't work on anything with high notes while I'm singing Siegmund because it's so low. I need to be able to preserve those tief in des Busens Berge glimmt nur noch lichtlose Glut. Very low stuff. But that's the kind of stuff that the schweres Hilton tenor would sing. So my category, or my division would be called echtes, ECHTES. So the echt just meaning true, like legitimate tenor. So I was always, and that's why I can do Siegfried, because not many pushed up baritones are cast in that. They don't even audition for it. They just know they can't sustain, like the Hammerlied. There's just a million A's in just the forging scene alone.
Yeah.
And you got to have a kind of a high sensitive quiet top for the awakening of Brunhilde, top of Act 3, or excuse me, last scene of Act 3. A lot of quiet stuff, a lot of sensitive high stuff that just if you were born, if you had it studied as a baritone, just not as likely that you can navigate that. I think Melchior literally was one of the only ones known for really being successful as Siegfried and having sung as a baritone.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we got a comment from Jen Bachmeyer. Thank you, Clay Hilly, for coming to the Wagner Society Zoom meeting today. It's terrific to hear your wonderful stories. Hope to see you in Bayreuth next year and the Centennial. One question: what do you do in your free time to relax and have fun? Thank you, Jen.
All right. Oh, of course. Thanks for the question. I put together a lot of jigsaw puzzles. I enjoy jigsaw. So that actually started in the when I was covering Parsifal. When I was covering the Met from my camper, which is parked, like I said, in Jersey City. There's a lot of time during Parsifal for the covers to have nothing to do. I mean, if you're sitting at the Met green room for 6 hours, and someone figured this out a long time ago, and there's this giant cabinet in the Metropolitan Opera green room that's just full, just top to bottom, of jigsaws. Because a lot of time you can burn a lot of time will pass more quickly if you're doing something like that. You get kind of in this little zen, you get in this little mindset. If you're still listening, you can still be clued into something and still have your eyes focused on some other task. So I end up putting a lot of those together. I find that I don't spend any money. I'm not going out and spending money on entertainment when I'm sitting here doing the jigsaws. And it's just, I just did Frau Ohne Schatten down in Baden-Baden, and I was all alone. Sarah had other business and other performing and auditioning to do. So I was down there. She was up here in Berlin at our place, and I was down in Baden-Baden alone. And the weather, it was very cold in February. Yeah. And, it's not very much fun to be in Germany in January and February, because you just can't be outside. And so I would hole up. I got to where I was putting together 2,000 pieces. I could put together a 2,000 piece one in about 3 or 4 days. So I like that. I like listening to podcasts about the news and politics and military history. I enjoy even eavesdropping back in on the camping world. Sometimes I'll go to YouTube and just look at what kind of new campers have been coming off the assembly line to see what kind of innovations they've made just since we've had ours. What else do I do? I watch Gilbert and Sullivan sometimes. Again, sometimes it's hard to. It's in a world that's it can be dark and cold and lonely. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a little lighthearted, perfectly orchestrated, jolly tunes. So those are some of the things I do.
Well, I have a one of our favorite society members, Anonymous.
Oh yeah, yes. I love him.
Yes. Do you ever get stage fright? And if so, how do you handle it? Do you have a good luck charm or an action or a little fuzzy blanket?
I swear by a couple of things. Well, the question is, do you get stage fright? I mean, knock on wood, I don't. And I'm really trying to be fully honest with the answer. Because I suppose if I think I could prove that I don't get it, and I can do so with the following anecdote. When I did my first Tristan with Donald, it was a remount. So in the German system, remounted productions only get 6-7 days of rehearsal.
Just a little brush up, really.
That's it. Just brush up. Yeah, you get the video and you sort of learn it visually, and then they'll put it together a little bit, and then you're off to the races. Well, we had three. I was fortunate that they had two Sitzprobes. So we had two rehearsals with just the orchestra, with us just, focusing on our music and balance and figuring out what Donald's going to, what kind of gestures he's making. So that was nice. But those were both at 10 a.m. I'm not a morning person. And it's not a problem. It's just that a singer should take care of himself a little better than I took care of myself in terms of pacing and planning. There were three more rehearsals with orchestra that were also stage rehearsals. So they call it Bühne Orchestra. So the stage orchestra rehearsal. But it was one act at a time. I think we did act one, it was like 10 a.m. one morning, and then there was nothing all afternoon. Then in the evening, we did act 3. And then at 10 a.m. the next morning, we did act 2. And that was, I think, a Friday morning. And then the rest of Friday was off. All of Saturday was off. And then we opened Sunday early evening. When I did act 1, the day that we did the one with act 1 in the morning and act 3 at night, I told myself, Haley, don't sing tomorrow at all during act 2, because I've already performed act 2 a couple of times and with orchestra. One of them was a COVID gig that I was able to fly over. I quarantined myself. This is January. This is New Year's of 20 going into 21. So the world was quite locked down, but they wanted to do this concert. They wanted it. We had no audience, but it was digitally streamed, and we all did COVID tests and everything.
Oops, we got a little bit of buffering going on here. I don't know whether it's completely locked up here. Okay, it looks like our screen's gotten locked up from buffering, and we've got everything else all closed out here. So I'm probably going to have to just end the meeting at this point in time. And here we go. Oh, wait, Clay, are you back, Clay? Oh, okay, Clay's back.
Hi, I have no idea. I got cut off. That was weird.
Yeah, sorry. It looked like it was a buffering problem of some sort. So
that's okay. What's the last thing you heard?
I'm not remembering. I was freaking out.
That's okay. What I meant, I guess what it was all building up to was I didn't really need to focus much on the Act 2 stage orchestra rehearsal. That was the final one on that Friday morning. I should have stuck to my plan. I made a plan sort of on Thursday night that I'd done enough singing for this. But then I got there Friday morning and decided I was going to, just sing it all out, because I was like, I've got this. It's paced. I've got the rest of tonight off. I've got all tomorrow off, and then we open Sunday. It's going to be great. Well, I just sang a little too much, and I got a little tired. Nothing. I mean, it's not like my voice wasn't cracking. I wasn't like red in the face or anything, but it was just I just overdone it for too many days early in the morning at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
And so, but again, I left feeling fine, and I had an interview. I had an interview in the lobby with a guy. It was a video interview. People wanting to know my history with the role, or just my thoughts on this upcoming debut and whatever. And I remember in my speaking voice, it kind of a few times started to do that. And I started thinking, oh man, I must be dehydrated. Well, by the end of that evening, there was like a hole right there in my speaking voice. And I was thinking, this is not good. I'm going to go on vocal rest for the rest of tonight and then all day tomorrow. Well, by Saturday evening, it still wasn't great. Sunday morning, I just slept very well. Saturday night, Sunday morning, this is the day of the opening. I'm not particularly vocally well, and I don't have a cover. So if I had canceled, they would have had to watch. The audience would have had to see a show with just me walking around maybe mouthing the words or something. So I did what I had to do. I went and visited the ear, nose, and throat doctor, and he put a scope and saw that they put a scope in the back of my throat and saw that I had swelling on my cords. And he asked me, well, what do you want? Do you want me to call the opera house and tell them that you shouldn't sing, or would you like to take a corticosteroid shot? And this is it's something I've had to do once earlier in my career.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I think I can do this. I'll take it. And I'll just sing the way I know how to sing, and we'll just see what happens. So it turned out the opera director, who I was in touch with pretty much constantly through all of this, told me that by the mercy of God, a tenor was going to be in the audience who had not performed the role yet, but who was learning it and was prepared. It was to perform it in the next couple or 3 months, and that miraculously he had gotten a ticket and someone knew about it, and so immediately Christoph Zeuferle, the opera director here in Berlin, got in touch with this gentleman and said, actually, instead of seeing the show in the house, could you do us a favor and just come backstage with a music stand? You don't have to do it from memory, but if any point Clay gives you the signal, could you please just bring the stand out and just take over and sing while Clay walks the role? But the steroid kicked in, and honestly, I thought at the end of every act, or at the end of Act 1 and Act 2, both times, I was pretty much convinced that I was going to have to pull the plug and just have clue the gentleman in that he was going to sing and I was going to walk. But it never happened. My wife was there, trusted friends were there, the opera director was there, even the ear, nose, and throat doctor who had given me the corticosteroid shot was there, and they came to me. They just at each of those intermissions and said, "You sound perfectly fresh, and I think you should just try one more act and just see how you feel."
Yeah.
A funny thing I said to Donald right before going on. So the problem was, somehow or another, my singing voice on the steroid did not get tired out. It was my speaking voice. Like, my speaking voice sounded like rags. I couldn't do any sort of talking. It was just, there was no point in even trying because it would sound like that. However, when you engage the full support mechanism and you're producing sound the way that we opera singers produce it, something fell into gear and it was fine, but I still couldn't speak. So I told Donald, I was apologizing to him before. This is before this is before the show. Of course, he obviously knew what was going on and sort of gave me this look of sadness and solidarity and whatever. I said, "Well, my speaking voice is fine. It's just that my singing voice is fine. It's just that I can't talk very much." And he says, "Well, it's a good thing we cut all the dialogue from this Tristan." So, in his dry sort of Donald way.
Yeah, I got one
please.
last question from Daniel Copty. Do you follow
Please.
a particular ritual on the day of the opera performance and during the intervals of the performance? Whatever, playing cards or canasta. I knew a lot of gals way back early when I was chumming around with a lot of the singers. The gals would be down there knitting, crocheting, doing embroidery and all that kind of, reading books. What's your go-to for killing time, waiting for your cue?
Well, that's an easy answer as far as killing time, because normally I'm just a big believer in, no matter how well I know a role, I have to have my music. I have to look through every single word. I have to go through the entire role before I can feel comfortable going on stage, or at least the chunk that I'm about to go on stage for. So during the intermissions of Tristan, I have a Vicks brand steam inhaler where, it's like this little hood. It has a little round tub for water. You pour water in there and there's a heating element. Plug it in, turn it on, the water begins to boil, and then you put this plastic hood on it, and then it just sort of fixes to your face like that. And it's just a natural way to take down swelling in the vocal cords. So that's the nice little, it's just a good feeling just to have just warm steam on your throat. It's great. I always make sure I have several sandwiches in the room. I can't singing on an empty stomach. I mean, obviously you don't want to sing on a too full stomach, but singing on an empty stomach is really, can be really annoying. I have tons and tons and tons of this beautiful stuff we have in Germany, apple soda. Apfelschorle is what it's called. So it's just
Yeah.
sparkling apple juice, which is not like unheard of completely in the States, but it's just as common as water here. I mean, vending machines have it. It's just the best, the best thing ever. It's so refreshing. It's sweet. It's bubbly. I just love it. So I swear by Apfelschorle. My steamer, sandwiches, proteins, apple cider vinegar is another Singer voodoo, and it's another one of those natural things to take down any sort of inflammation in your cords. Also, bromelain, which is a would it be a hormone? It's a substance that also it's found in pineapple. So if I can't find a bromelain pill to take down little minor inflammation and swelling, minor irritation, you just a few little chunks of pineapple will do it. So
Bananas? Someone's asking, do you
Yeah, hey, bananas
a
are
lot of
great.
potassium and a lot of
Yeah, bananas are great. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, they are great, but they're just not a part of my regular voodoo. Even though if there's ever one laying around, yeah, I'll scarf it down. Yeah, but it's not one that I go out my way to buy usually. Maybe perhaps I should.
Yeah, well, they go down easy too.
Yeah.
That's it on the questions that I have. And I want to just take this opportunity to thank you very much for your time. I know your time is precious and you've got a lot of things to think about and prep to do and so on and so forth. And it's just been a delight having you with us as a guest. And I hope we get to see you. I hope I don't have to get on an airplane to see you. Maybe we will see you. Sometimes you got to be a little bit closed mouth about what you're doing in the future. I hope we maybe get to see you in the War Memorial Opera House soon. Or
Well, I can tell you that I don't have anything coming up there. You can whisper to the important people, but I don't.
I will try to do that then. We're supposed to have a ton of Wagner coming up. We're going to run through the whole repertory as far as I know. I don't know about the three
Good.
ones, but Young Sung Kim and Matthew Shilvak have made a commitment that they're going to have Wagner front and center as a prime in the repertory going forward. So we're excited about that. And
no, that's great to hear. I'm glad to hear that.
Yes. So fingers crossed. And well, best of luck to you. Best wishes to you and Sarah too. And we hope everything goes well for you. And thank you so much for your time.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much. I'm happy to come back anytime to talk to you guys.
Oh,
and
wonderful.
yes, please.
So
we all cross our fingers.
Yeah. So
we see each other on that side of the pond.
Yeah. Here's our next meeting that we're going to be having is next Saturday on June 24th at 1:00 p.m. A live meeting with Professor Catherine Sayers, going to talk about Richard Strauss's evolving relationship with Wagner's creative legacy as part of our celebration of having Frauen Schatten presented here in San Francisco. So thank you for attending, everyone, and we'll see you next time or see you at the Opera House. Bye-bye.